welcome folks to our Ask an Advocate Anything session. And we have some things that we probably won't answer if you ask them, but I think everyone here is going to be awesome and respectful. So if you at this late date do not know, I am Christian John Lillis, the executive director of the Peggy Lillis Foundation. And I'm really delighted to be joined here by three members of our Advocates Council. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to ask each of them to just, briefly share their name, where they're dialing in from, and just a little bit about their experience with C. diff. And then we're going to open it up, and you guys can, and folks who are watching can either click the join tab to ask your question live. You'll come on the screen with us and we can talk to you about it, or you can post your question in the chat and then I'll ask them of the advocates. So why don't we start off with Pam?
My name is Pam Mcaulister, and I live just outside of Portland, Oregon. My battle with C. diff began in 2017 from the overuse of antibiotics. And I had a total of 5 infections. 3 of those became sepsis. I was in and out of the hospital for a year. And on every medication that there is to treat C. diff. And I had an FMT that did not work. And I ended up doing an infusion of bezlotoxumab, which is what eventually ended up helping. The emotional journey that I've been on has been a roller coaster ride. It has been something that I didn't expect when I started this journey. I deal with tons of PTSD and fear from the hospital and doctor's offices and antibiotic scare. I have not taken any since getting sick, and I'm scared to death to do so. Yeah, this has molded me into somebody that I didn't think I would ever be. But yeah, I am happy to be here and excited for where this takes me from here.
Well, we are so happy to have you be part of this. So that it's tough to dig yourself out of that. And you're also a mom, so you have kids who probably need antibiotics from time to time, and I would imagine you white knuckle it through that as well. I had to take antibiotics a couple of months ago for the first time since my mother died. And I talked about this during my speeches. I never took them. I didn't like them. And maybe Debbie Goff's husband's going to fix my teeth at some point. But so Kee Kee, let's turn it over to you.
Okay. I'm Kee Kee Buckley. I'm from Hampton, New Jersey. And I got C. diff about 1.5 years ago. Unlike Christian, I actually have taken a lot of antibiotics in my life. And unfortunately, it was my go-to thing. Anytime I'd feel sick, I'd think, oh my God, I'm going to get bronchitis or sinus infection because I'm asthmatic. And I was on antibiotics for a sinus infection, which I ultimately probably didn't need. And during that time, I had a colonoscopy, and we don't know if I already had C. diff in my gut, or if I contracted it in the hospital when I went to get my colonoscopy, or maybe it was, I acquired it in the community, but somehow I got C. diff, and I got very, very sick, and I had never heard of it. And my doctor told me, you have C. diff. And I said, what's C. diff? And she said, Google it. And I Googled it and was mortified. So I was put on a really strong antibiotic and it didn't work. I relapsed right away. And then I was put on another strong antibiotic and relapsed again. And then I went septic and I was hospitalized for a week with sepsis, and like others of you who were hospitalized, kept in isolation. And I was on 3 strong antibiotics and a host of other things, and we didn't know if I was going to make it. And so I had to have that conversation that nobody wants to have with my new husband of, if I die, this is what you need to know. But obviously I didn't die. I'm here. And when I was stabilized enough after a week, they released me from the hospital. And the idea was keep me on 2 antibiotics and taper them off. And I relapsed before I even finished the taper. And so lucky for me, I knew about FMTs and I had been really advocating since I was in the hospital to get one. And they finally, my infectious disease doctor finally said, okay, I've never had anyone have one before, but I'll make a referral. And I had an FMT, and then I also had an infusion, Pam. I've never talked to anybody else who had it, of Zimplava. And I've been healthy since then, although it took a long time to bounce back from the sepsis.
Yeah, that's and for those who are not aware, Zimplava and Bexel, I don't know how to say the generic name of it, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Lauren, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. My name is Lauren Webb. I'm from Gainesville, Florida. Well, I'm currently in Gainesville. My mother was the C. diff patient, and this was in 2016. We were living in West Palm Beach, Florida. She went into the hospital for a case of diverticulitis, was prescribed IV antibiotics, and after that came back to the hospital just about a week later probably, and was confirmed positive for C. diff. Over the next 3 years, she had recurrent case over recurrent case and was in the hospital more times than you can count. Eventually went septic, like Pam and Kee Kee. But now she is fine. She had an FMT in 2019, I believe, and late 2018, early 2019. And now she's an advocate for the Peggy Lillis Foundation. But I am here to give my perspective as someone who was the caregiver and also the child of a C. diff patient. It was obviously very difficult for me as a teenager, but I'm happy to help now.
Well, thank you guys so much for giving folks just a little bit of background. And so now we're just going to invite folks either through the chat, or if they want to come on live, there should be a button, I think it's on the upper right side of their screen, where they can click and we can let them in on video if they want to ask a question. So let's have it. Let's go, guys. Sorry, my incredible husband just brought me more coffee because I was starting to hit the wall.
Oh, I like Andrew's comment.
Yeah,
That's good to know.
No, that is a good one. Yes, I had to have a colonoscopy a couple of years ago, and there had been a scare of people getting, I think, CRE through colonoscopies because they weren't cleaning them properly. And I called I asked my doctor, I called them like 3 times, how do you clean them? I was pretty much a complete pest in that regard. So, oops, hold on, sorry, I was in the wrong thing. So while we're waiting for folks to chime in with their own questions, let me actually check this other box because maybe people, okay.
Yeah, we've got one.
Perfect. Excellent. So Gerard asks, what are your thoughts on potential non-pharma technologies that could help address challenges faced by CDI patients and caregivers, like bathroom access finder apps, other ideas like that? What would you like to see people invent? That's a really interesting question.
Yeah, the bathroom access finder app would be really cool.
I live in New York City, and particularly during COVID, because there was some health regulation where, like, even if you went into a restaurant and bought something, you couldn't use their bathroom. And, you know, I don't know. I think I turned 44, and then I just had to, pee every 10 minutes, it seemed. And so just the inability to access public restrooms or know where they are is just crazy. So yeah, a bathroom. And also the reality of it is, especially for those of us who live in larger cities, like just having public restrooms, like public restrooms, like I don't have to go into a place and buy something, would be super cool. Pam or Lauren, do you have any thoughts on what tech you'd like to see out there?
I remember when my mother had C. diff, she was redirected by a doctor to get this app, which was for IBS patients, that was like green light, red light. This is the food that you can eat. This is the food that you can't eat, which was really great, but it wasn't C. diff tailored. So I think food like apps like that can help you navigate your diet. You can, talk about what's best for you. Things like that aren't for IBS patients, they're for C. diff patients. That's what I think of.
That's interesting. Pam, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I actually use an app like that, but I've gone through so much food intolerance testing and stuff since being sick because I can't digest a lot of things now. So I'm sure several other survivors have had the same problems since being sick. So, I don't even know that when I was sick, the thought of eating just horrified me because whatever went in came right back out. So even liquids, I don't know that I can't think of something that I would want app-wise in regards to food.
Something that it doesn't involve you having to eat.
Right.
An app that gives you nutrients.
Right.
I actually probably would have used that app. Like you, for a lot of my illness, I had no appetite at all and didn't want to eat. And the idea of food just repulsed me. But I spent hours and hours online, like researching, trying to find blogs of people who had C. diff and reading articles and finding out what food I could eat and looking for recipes. And, a lot of it was like, congealed rice made in the slow cooker and things like that, things that like were really soothing on your belly.
It's a very small list. Yeah,
it's a very small list, but still it would have been nice to have an app that told me that. It could have saved me a lot of hours.
Our Dr. Bruce Hirsch, who's one of our board members and who's presenting at 2:00, he and Christina Furman, and we'll obviously might rope you guys into this too, but now that our care guide is out there, one of the things we want to do is make a cookbook for C. diff patients.
Great.
And of course there's going to be a lot of variability because there's a lot of variability in what people can tolerate. But I think the idea of even just coming up with some decent recipes that are like, almost like brat diet, like things that are very unlikely to trigger you. Like there's that whole FODMAP thing, like things that are low inflammation, so, and I love to cook. My mom loved to cook. And so I just think it would be like a fabulous idea, So we have another question from Samantha, and she says, besides Google, what other online resources did you find helpful when educating yourself on C. diff? Or maybe something you found through Google.
Go ahead, Pam.
Go ahead.
Well, I read a lot of scientific articles, which a lot of people aren't going to do. What was most helpful for me, like I said, were finding people's blogs that had written about it and finding articles written about it. But to be honest, there wasn't a lot out there.
Right. My entire time with C. diff was spent in the hospital. So my husband did a ton of research because we weren't told how to clean or anything about C. diff, period. And having 2 kids at home, that was a big concern when I did come home because I was still sick. So he found a ton of information on the CDC's website, and he as well did a lot of reading of, medical sites and stuff as well.
You know, I was so stocked up on Clorox bleach wipes and rubber gloves, and like it was really kind of a PTSD thing of like, oh my God, I just don't want to get anybody else sick, and I like neurotically cleaned anything I touched. But I had my FMT and my Zimplava infusion like 3 months before COVID hit and we went into lockdown in New Jersey. So I was like totally stocked up on antiseptic wipes.
You're the one who bought all the toilet paper in New Jersey. So Lauren, as somebody who was in high school and your mom got sick, were there any resources that you found that were helpful to you? I think we talked about this during Tessa's conversation, but I think sort of members can do is a big part of this too, because how do you care for somebody? How do you support them? I think that's a big question.
Yeah. So, well, like anybody, I was told to Google it. I got a text while I was in school one morning and said, I just got confirmed for C. diff. And I said, well, the heck is that? So the first thing I found was the CDC website, the little drawing of someone with intestinal pain that comes up when you Google enteric disease. And so it really depends on what you need. So I would say from like the patient perspective, like Kee Kee said, it's really important to be able to find those blogs and like the PLF Facebook page and stuff like that, where you can actually hear what it's like. Because from all of those websites that tell you how to care for the bathroom space and how to ask for the right medications, you don't get the impression that it's as serious as it is sometimes, as painful and as traumatic. So I would agree that the CDC website was really helpful in learning the procedures and what it is, why it happens, how it happens. But those blogs are really good resources for patients.
Yeah, and I have to, Pam kind of alluded to this, but I want to give her props because she was one of our reviewers for the C. diff Care Guide, and you gave us a lot of really great feedback about, putting the cleanliness thing earlier. You also talked about, to us about what it's like, when you're the caregiver, you're the mom, you're the dad, you're the person who provides the care to a family, and now you're sidelined. And I think that really helped the care guide to be a much better document than before you gave us that feedback. So we're really grateful to that, and many people are going to benefit from that. So we have a multi-part question here for Rebecca. Who says her anxiety since having C. diff has been horrible. I have 3 kids and I'm so afraid of dying from it. My question is, in the future, I get prescribed antibiotics, do I take them or not? That's one part of it. Also, if I were in the need of FMT or that infusion, I think she's talking about that Zimplava, which I know is expensive, would they do it if my life depended on it? And now she believes she has post-infectious IBS. How common is that after C. diff? So we could take those in turn. And I think for the first one, in terms of antibiotics, I think that's kind of a personal question. And by that, I mean, like, it's almost a personal decision you have to make for yourself. But have you guys had to grapple with that since recovering?
I'm terrified of having to go on antibiotics again. And I talked to my infectious disease doctor about it. And what she had said was if I ever have to, that I have to go on vancomycin at the same time, which is the antibiotic, one of the antibiotics that they prescribe for C. diff. And it didn't work for me. So, I wouldn't want to go on it anyway. So I don't know. I mean, we'll deal with it when that time comes. But I do know I've learned a lot about my body through this. And I think the human body is much stronger than we often give it credit for. And a lot of things that I used to get antibiotics for, I can probably fight on my own. And I've had what I would have called a sinus infection since all this happened. And it took twice as long to get better, but I got better on my own without antibiotics. So yeah, but it's a scary thought.
Yeah. I've had 2 back surgeries since having C. diff. And, they give you IV antibiotics before or during any operation. So I've had IV antibiotics, which was a huge hurdle to cross because the anxiety running through my system was out of control. And so having to deal with that was huge. They gave me vancomycin when I did that to try to calm me a little bit. So that was okay. I have not taken an oral antibiotic since, and I am horrified to do so. And I have told my husband I will not, unless I'm on my deathbed, take an antibiotic orally. I think maybe we are all in that same anxiety of having to do it.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I would say, and we talked quite a bit about this during the antibiotic stewardship session. And Rebecca, if you weren't able to watch that, it was recorded, and we'll make all the recordings available probably toward the end of next week. We'll send an email out when they're all cleaned up and ready to go. But one of the conversations that I think we need to have is that people need to be able to have an in-depth physician. So I tell the story a lot about my brother. My brother is a plumber at the big public hospital here in Brooklyn. And he, probably in the 18 months after our mother passed away, he was offered antibiotics 3 times. One was for bronchitis. One was for a minor laceration he got while doing plumbing, and I forget what the other one was. When they were offered to him, he asked the doctor, can I recover from this without, this is the bronchitis, without a Kee Kee with the sinus infection? And they said, yeah, but you have to monitor yourself. You want to make sure it doesn't turn into pneumonia. And he said, okay, well, what do I look for? And he recovered on his own because your body can fight bronchitis. We survived bronchitis long before the invention of antibiotics. And with the laceration, it was similar, where they said, well, keep it covered, do this, do that. Debbie Goff, I think, said during the antibiotic stewardship conversation that a lot of it is what they call defensive doctoring. They don't want somebody that gets an infection to say, well, you didn't give me an antibiotic. And, they're only looking at that side of the ledger, as opposed to all the people who take the antibiotic that they didn't need and then get C. diff, or get, beyond C. diff, there's, for quinolones, there's another issue you can get, which is where they can have neurological impacts. They can affect your tendons. I've met people that have fluoroquinolone toxicity syndrome, and their tendons will randomly snap, like you're walking down the street and your Achilles tendon just breaks in half. So these drugs do have side effects, and I think that that's something that we all have to be more honest about. And Rebecca, I would encourage you to have, those frank conversations with your doctor. In terms of if she was in need of an FMT or that infusion, which is expensive, would they do it if her life depended on it? I think, you know, Lauren's mom and the two folks we have here with us did get FMTs. FMTs are not actually super expensive. It's really the living in a place that where you can get one that has like an academic medical center, being able to travel. Like there are hurdles to it. You know, Zimplava, my understanding is that, you know, it probably would depend on your insurance. It's something you have to know about because it's not well publicized. And so I think that's something you'd have to fight with your insurance company about. But often Merck, I believe, is the one that makes it. And, you know, they do have assistance programs. We were recently able to help an older couple who are on Medicare to get basically a coupon that greatly reduced the cost of them getting fidaxomicin. So, you know, be savvy, Rebecca. And Rebecca, we're here for you too. Like, email us. Like, we will help you if you get into this situation. The last question she has, which is that she believes she has post-infectious IBS. And, you know, Pam has talked about this in terms of having, you know, some challenges with food. Kee Kee, I don't know if you're having a similar experience.
You know, I had IBS for most of my life, and the weird thing is I don't now. But I know it's very, very common, you know, to have some sort of IBS or other problems after having C. diff.
Yeah, so I actually had, I was diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome when I was in college, which does give me great empathy for people with C. diff, because I did know where every bathroom was between every class I had and between my house and the college. And, you know, and even up until when my husband and I were first dating, I think our second date, I had to literally race from the dinner table and into the bathroom of this Italian restaurant. And then I had to come out to him as an IBS sufferer. And thankfully, I seem to not really have that issue anymore. I still do get like cramps. My brother gets them too. Like, it feels like that kind of pain of needing to go to the bathroom, but nothing happens. Plastic colon almost. It's like like an overactive thing. But there's been, kind of brings us to a larger question. Our friends at the Sepsis Alliance and Sepsis Advocates have done a great job of getting the medical establishment to recognize post-sepsis syndrome. You know, thankfully, you both seem to have recovery, but there are many people who are left with neurological deficiencies, with a whole host of things following being in septic shock. And I mean, I learned this, you know, not long after my mother died, where, you know, if you go into septic shock, your chances of survival are like 50-50. Like, it's really, you are on death's door. Like, it is very, very dangerous. And so I've been thinking, and I've talked to a couple of our doctors about the idea of maybe we need to start thinking about a post-C. diff syndrome, like something, you know, like here's a battery of symptoms that people who are technically cured continue to struggle with. And, you know, those are our GI symptoms, those are mental health symptoms, you know, and begin to help the medical establishment understand that, like, on paper you're cured, but in reality you're suffering with the after effects of this. What do you guys think about that?
That would have been so helpful to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it took me probably 10 months to feel back to normal. And I did a lot of that on my own. Like, I was like trying to do yoga. I didn't have energy to do yoga. I was trying to meditate. Nothing would work. And what really helped me get my vitality back is I discovered Qigong, like right at the beginning of, like, probably a month before lockdown. And so I just dove deep into it. Like, I always thought this was something like old people did in the parks. And I started doing like an hour a day. And it's like, it really weirdly helped quickly me start to feel better. It's not going to work for everyone, but there's, you know, I'm sure there were other things. And I would have loved to have talked to other people that were going through it or had gone through it to know that I would be normal again one day.
You mean your vitality, like, do you think that was from the sepsis or from
Yeah.
C. diff?
Oh, it's probably from both.
Sepsis?
It was probably
Right.
from both, but the sepsis, when I got out of the hospital, it's just, I not only fatigue, it was just something deep in my bones. Like I was just felt like I lost some of my life force, or some of my sparkle, and yeah, it took a long time to get back and a long time to be able to work out again. How about you, Pam?
For sure.
How did you?
From the sepsis, it took a long time. Like I would nod off in the car, just out of the blue, from fatigue. And then like this mental fog just kind of lingered for a very long time. The sepsis took a while to get over. And then that was something that as well, like for anybody that has had C. diff and suffered from sepsis, it took, that was something else that the doctors never really discussed as well. Like that, that there's going to be some effects from being in septic shock that you're going to have to deal with. Nobody ever discussed that. Nobody ever brought that up afterwards either, that, oh, maybe you're feeling this way because of the effects of being in sepsis. And then, like I just kind of chalked it up like there's something wrong with me. Like, I'm going loony here. I've got something wrong. And then, recovering from C. diff, I'm still not, I don't feel right. And it's been, 3 years and I still don't feel normal, I don't know. Don't know how long that will take before I don't know if I'll ever feel like I did before being infected, but I definitely feel better than I did a year ago, but I don't totally feel normal.
Yeah, I think something that, Tessa kind of touched on this, but, I forget, someone famously said we don't have a healthcare system, we have a sick care system. And I think partially it's, we deal with acute things or chronic conditions, but we don't actually help people be well. And part of me wonders, like instead of saying like, oh, well, we've discharged you and, even if they mentioned lingering effects of sepsis, what if we had, a system that was like, how do we get you back to 100%? Like, what is that going to take? What does that look like? What community supports do we need to get back to 100%? Like, even just having somebody that you could call, because C. diff can be so stigmatized, and sepsis people don't really talk about that much. The Sepsis Alliance has done a great job of raising awareness. Just being able to say like, oh, Kee Kee, you have brain fog, I have brain fog. Like, just so you don't feel like you're losing your mind all the time. I remember, and we'll go to the next question in a second, but I remember, I thought I was so savvy. I worked in radiology when I was younger. I was a total hypochondriac, partially because of the OCD. I constantly thought there was something wrong with me. And so like, when they told me my mother had C. diff, and I was stunned. And then they came to us a few minutes later and said, oh, and she's going into sepsis. And she was up and talking to us.
Right.
Like, she definitely seemed a little out of it, but she was also profoundly dehydrated. Like, Tessa mentioned that at one point her blood pressure was 70/50. Well, when my mother was taken to the hospital, her blood pressure was 70/40. And so we chalked it up to that in the moment. But the more I've learned about sepsis, the more I'm like, oh, she could have been having cognitive impairment from profound dehydration. She's going into septic shock. Her kidneys are shutting down. But like I had this vision probably from like Grey's Anatomy or Chicago Hope or ER or any of those shows that like somebody in sepsis was like in a coma with all these tubes sticking out of them. And I think most people don't realize that you could be walking around in the early stages of sepsis and, you know, and have no earthly idea, you know, and it can happen so rapidly. So Samantha has a very practical question.
Can I say one thing about that, though, about it happening rapidly? The way it happened for me is in the morning, I went out and I got a mani-pedi. And then by 2 p.m., I was throwing up and shaking uncontrollably and moaning with pain. And like could not, like I spiked a fever and I like couldn't even get a sentence out. That's how quickly it happened for me. So, yeah.
Mine was about that quick as well.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think people don't understand what sepsis is. And I mean, sepsis is when your body, because you have an overwhelming infection, basically kind of turns on itself and starts to kind of shut down your organ. I mean, it's your immune system going into complete overdrive and attacking your own body. I mean, not obviously a much more profound effect, but not dissimilar from what Tessa talked about with Crohn's, where it's like suddenly your immune system thinks your whole body is an alien, you know? So Samantha had a practical question, which I love, which is what household cleaning products or personal care products would be helpful and appreciated as care packages for somebody that's dealing with C. diff? I think that's a great question.
What a great idea. Definitely
Care
Clorox bleach wipes. I saw a comment in the comments about how Clorox wipes don't kill C. diff. You have to get the medical grade ones that have bleach in them. And you can get them on Amazon. And then rubber gloves, because you shouldn't be using those without gloves on. That's a good start.
Toilet brush?
Yes.
Toilet brush? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that is recommended and is in our care guide is that if you live in a house with more than one bathroom, I live in New York City. We do not have more than one bathroom. I tried very hard for us to get an apartment that had more than one bathroom, but if the parking was better, we might have had that. But one of the big suggestions is that the person with C. diff uses one bathroom and everyone else uses the other bathroom. And that way you're limiting the exposure to the spores.
Yeah. We had 2 bathrooms. My dad was working and he was probably not as well equipped to handle C. diff had he gotten infected. So my mother started sharing the guest bathroom that I used and kind of separated from him, prioritizing, you know, who would be better were they to get the infection from the bathroom. And so she'd clean every time, but still.
Yeah, knowing your mother, I'm sure she was very, very particular about that, how she was feeling.
You know, another good thing to go in that care package would be either Floristore or BioK Plus,
sure.
to the probiotics that have been shown to help with C. diff. So that's important. And maybe even like some kefir and kombucha, you know, things that easily go down. And I found kefir and yogurt were very soothing. Plus they
even some like some wipes, like flushable wipes, because you go to the bathroom so much,
and you don't want to chafe.
Sure.
You know what? Put a bidet in the care package. They do sell them. You can just put them on your toilets now. My brother just got one. I haven't asked him why yet. Something happening that you haven't told me yet.
Well, just wait till your nephew finds it, because that's going to be like the greatest toy ever.
I'll have to send you a video, Pam, because he's obsessed. He went through this obsession with water for the last 6 months, and he keeps wanting to get up and play in the sink in the kitchen. And so when he does it, I make him wash the dishes. I make a game of washing the dishes. I'm like, okay, Grayson, now scrub this one. And when mommy comes downstairs, she's gonna think you're the best. I do have to generally wash them again, but we're trying to encourage good behavior. You know, my mom had 2 sons and was a single mother, so she insisted that we do all housework. You know, like we were not going to be allowed to get away with it. Amanda Bonagora said that Fresh Direct for anyone in the NYC area has BioK shakes. That's good to know. And she also recommends hand soap, disposable towels for the bathroom. That's actually a great idea.
Yeah.
You can throw out. And you know, you can get them for not a ton of money. You know, you can order a package of 4 or 5 and just use them for that. And then when you're better, just toss everything. And lotion from all the hand scrubbing, which I'm sure is also true. Getting a really good Clio bars. I don't know what those are, but I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take that as a one that's good. So let me see, what else do we have here? Amanda, are you on meds for IBS or do you take probiotics? Amanda answered that my GI doctor encouraged maintaining Florastar every day. I've been C. diff free for over a year. Did 2 rounds of Vanco, ate lots of dairy-free yogurt, and take Florastar. Yeah, those are all good recommendations. I think, you know, the great thing about kombucha and some of these other things is that they have not just probiotics, but what they call prebiotics, which are the another thing, again, once you can tolerate it, because some of this stuff is a little hard to eat when you're not feeling peckish, but fermented foods. So fresh sauerkraut, not in a jar, but like something that you're getting from the deli, pickles, you know, kombucha is also fermented, not kombucha, kimchi is fermented.
Special, I don't know what my mother eats, but she eats it because it has a special culture. So on yogurts, it'll tell you what live cultures of bacteria there are on there. Some of them may be better suited to C. diff. I don't know. I think her doctor recommended this certain strain, so she only gets the brown cow yogurt.
Okay.
But
you know, when I started making my own kefir after I got sick, and my own kombucha, because I saved so much money and it's also kind of fun. But I also get a prebiotic powder that I mix in with my kefir every morning. And then I see in the comments, Amanda says she loves mild miso too. I've started just taking miso and spreading it on a piece of toast and eating it that way. I always thought you had to mix it with water and just make soup, but it's really good by itself. And you get lots of really good probiotics from it.
Yeah, I think we have 8 minutes left. Folks have any other questions?
Someone asked about advocating for the take back law.
Yeah, I wasn't.
To advocate for that.
Take back Oregon's drug take back law requires drug manufacturers to be found and develop a statewide drug take back program, providing safe and secure disposal of drugs for Oregon residents and other covered entities. And I'm guessing maybe that's in reference to the idea of disposing of antibiotics safely. And I'm not aware of what the status is in New York. I mean, Pam's in Oregon, so I mean, there are. I mean, one of the things I would say is that I've noticed in our pharmacy, and I think most pharmacies, this is the case, where they have a safe, you know, they'll have a safe drug disposal, like if anything you're using that you don't want to get flushed or throw in the water, because I think, you know, we've heard a lot about community-acquired C. diff, and you know, even among people who have, you know, not taken an antibiotic, and you know, when they test our water now, they find, even those of us who, you know, live in big cities with all kinds of filtration, you know, they find antibiotic residue in water, they find antidepressant residue in water, you know, so people are flushing this stuff and it's getting into the system, and it makes me wonder if that's not just, you know, on a low grade level, just impacting people's gut microbiome and making them more susceptible. Marianne asks, what amount of Florastor daily do you take? Are any of you guys taking Florastor?
I'm not taking it right now.
I am. Give me a sec to look it up.
So, and we had a question about the fact that Florista is getting
You guys talked about the yogurt.
Don't they have a generic now?
yeah, I'm popping into the chat a link to an article that we had posted on our blog last year, which is about choosing the best probiotic for C. diff. And it's a little lengthy, but it's worth reading because I don't think it's much about name brands so much as like looking and making sure that like what's in it. Oh, Lauren's mom popped into the chat to say there are manufacturer coupons for Floristore. Hi, Marianne.
Hi, Marianne.
You can see
Talking
Marianne
about your yogurt.
on our next session. This is really becoming a family affair. Kee Kee, Pam, you're going to have to get your kids and your spouses and all your animals at the next summit. So, I mean, I don't know if you could see, but my dog was kind of hovering in the background over here a little while ago. Yeah, she do. You can use your lots of answers in the chat here. So we only have about.
I just do one. I do a 250 milligram pill a day.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think if you're on maintenance and you're feeling better, you know, it's also something you can. So when doctors go to medical school, they take like half a semester on nutrition. It's like they get almost no education about nutrition. So you actually may be better off if you have access to it and can afford it. And this is something that we want to do with eventually writing a cookbook is get a nutritionist. Because they will know much more about even this probiotic stuff than your average doctor will, because this is all they study. So in our last couple of minutes, I'm going to throw you guys a curveball and ask you a final question, which is, what is your hope for the future in terms of C. diff prevention and treatment?
Do you want to take it, Pam, or you look like
Go ahead.
All right. My hope is, first of all, that it gets more publicity, that people learn about it, because right now 60% of Americans have never heard of it, and a lot of us who have had it or have it had never heard of it before that. And with that, I hope we get more education, so it's treatable, and so it's survivable, and so it's also rare. So
that would be my major hope as well. But my other hope is also that doctors are more knowledgeable. That was something I ran into like on countless occasions.
Me too.
While in the hospital, that they didn't know what to do, which kind of shocked me. So it just maybe, I mean, and I that was baffling. So just, I mean, education even in the medical profession of C. diff and how to treat it, and you know, I mean, just getting more help post C. diff as well, making it more of a center of focus for the medical profession, that there are issues after being infected that need to be addressed as well.
Lauren, do you have anything?
Yeah, I would say that similar to what Pam said about the physicians, just that people will take it seriously, just as you might discuss the possibility of sepsis during an operation and the importance of preventing other kinds of diseases when you go into the hospital. C. diff should be one of those on the top of the list that people know about understand the seriousness, understand how susceptible they are, and take actions to prevent it in themselves and others.
So I will add one of mine, which is that I really want to see healthcare facilities of all kinds invest in infection prevention and control. Often the people who are cleaning hospital rooms or the bathroom at your doctor's office are not well paid, don't have insurance, and so this sort of critical first line of people just cleaning the facilities is lacking. And it's part of why we have so many infections in this country. And I think it's something that, these could be good, well-paying jobs. I mean, there have been some examples. One was, God, I'm forgetting the hospital, but they took the janitorial staff and they put them under the infection control department.
Wow.
And they saw a huge improvement in the reduction of infections of all kind because they were trained better, they were paid better, and they were seen as the front line of infection control. Before you get to a nurse, before the place has to be clean, and it has to be clean in a way that's not just we don't visibly see dirt, but is clean at the microbial level. So I think we'll leave it there. God, I just sounded like I was a newscaster. I was having pundit moment. We're gonna leave it there, even though we haven't answered any of the questions that were posed. Actually, I think we answered every question that was posed. Thank you so much, Pam, Kee Kee, and Lauren, for doing this. I hope we're going to make this a feature of future summits. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I learned so much from our advocates all the time. And, this started because of my mom. And my mom was a teacher and she believed very much in education. But I say all the time that what keeps me going when this is hard, and it is hard to run this thing, is all of you, the three of you and all of our other advocates and all the people who write to us and reach out to us, you taking time out of your lives and being willing to, of course, the dog decides to go nuts when I'm talking, to take time out of your lives and, revisit difficult things for the benefit of other people. So you have my unending admiration and respect for doing that. And I will see you guys soon, I hope. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.